Emma stood outside the towering glass building of Reid Industries, clutching a small, worn-out envelope in her trembling hands. The icy Manhattan wind whipped through her hair, but she barely felt it. Her heart thudded in her chest like a drum, echoing every fear she had buried for years. Today wasn't about pride or comfort. It was about honor. Her late father had once worked for Alexander Reid, the billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business sense and impossible standards. Years ago, he'd taken a small loan to keep their garage alive, promising to repay it. But time had run out before he could. Now his daughter was here to make things right. Taking a shaky breath, Emma stepped inside, her reflection fading against the mirrored lobby walls as she walked toward a meeting that would change everything. The receptionist glanced up as Emma approached, her voice polite but distant.
"Do you have an appointment?"
she asked. Emma nodded nervously, showing the letter she had received, a formal notice reminding her of her father's outstanding balance. Within minutes, she was led to the top floor, where silence ruled and power seemed to hum in the air. The elevator doors opened to reveal Alexander Reid's office, a vast space of glass and steel overlooking the city skyline. He stood by the window, tall, composed, and intimidatingly calm. When he turned to face her, his gaze met hers, sharp yet unreadable. "Miss Turner, please have a seat," he said, his voice deep and steady. She obeyed, gripping the envelope tightly in her lap, wishing her hands would stop shaking. For a moment, neither spoke. The ticking of a wall clock filled the silence between them. Finally, Emma found her courage. "Mr. Reid," she began softly, "I came to repay what my father owed you. It's not much, but it's everything I have." She slid the envelope across his desk, the sound of paper against glass echoing in the quiet room. Alexander didn't reach for it. Instead, he studied her face, her nervous eyes, her quivering lips, the exhaustion written all over her expression. "You came all this way? For this?" he asked slowly. She nodded. "My father was a good man. He believed in paying what he owed. I don't want his name to be remembered as someone who didn't keep his word." Her voice broke at the end, and she quickly looked away, embarrassed by her emotion. Alexander leaned back in his chair, his gaze softening just slightly. There was something in her tone, a sincerity he hadn't heard in years. He remembered her father vaguely, a humble mechanic who once worked miracles on engines while wearing a smile that could melt frustration into gratitude. He recalled that day long ago when his car had broken down outside a small Ohio town and an honest man had helped him without asking for a dime. "Could it be the same Turner?" "Your father," he said quietly, "was John Turner, wasn't he?" Emma's head lifted in surprise. "You knew him?" Alexander nodded slowly, a small, almost wistful smile tugging at his lips. "He fixed my car in the middle of a snowstorm 15 years ago. I tried to pay him, but he refused. Said, 'Kindness doesn't come with a receipt.'" I never forgot those words. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. She had never heard that story. Her father had kept it to himself, as he always did. "He never told me," she whispered. Alexander's gaze fell on the envelope again, then back at her face. "And now his daughter shows up, ready to repay me for something that was never a debt." He reached forward and gently pushed the envelope back toward her. "You owe me nothing, Miss Turner." Emma blinked, stunned. "But He raised a hand, stopping her. "Your father's kindness was payment enough. If anything, I've owed him for years." Silence lingered between them, heavy but somehow warm. Emma swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Everything she had prepared to say, every apology she had rehearsed, suddenly felt meaningless. "I just wanted to do what was right," she said softly. Alexander nodded. "And you did. But maybe you can help me do something right too." He paused for a moment, his eyes searching hers, then added with a faint smile, "Have dinner with me." Emma's heart skipped. "Dinner?" she echoed, confused. He nodded again, still calm but with a trace of kindness in his tone. "Your father once shared a meal with me after fixing my car. It was the best conversation I ever had with a stranger. Maybe it's time we honor that memory properly." Emma stared at him, caught between disbelief and something unfamiliar, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Completely," Alexander said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "You came here out of love and loyalty, not obligation. That deserves something more than a cold transaction." She looked down at the envelope, then back at him. "I don't know what to say." He smiled slightly. "Say yes. We'll call it balancing the books in a different way." For the first time since her father's death, Emma felt something close to peace. She nodded slowly, clutching the envelope to her chest. "Dinner then," she said, her voice trembling but sure. Alexander's smile widened just a little as he stood to open the office door for her. "It's a deal, Miss Turner," he said. "No debts, just dinner." That evening, the city lights shimmered across the Hudson like falling stars, and Emma could hardly believe where she was headed. The same man who could buy anything in the world had asked her to dinner, yet it didn't feel like business. She kept wondering if this was real or just some strange dream she would wake from. When she arrived at the small Italian restaurant he'd chosen, she expected luxury and formality. Instead, it was warm, quiet, and filled with the scent of baked bread and laughter. Alexander was already there, dressed casually for once, a simple shirt and sleeves rolled up, as though he wanted to forget being a CEO for a while. Emma hesitated before sitting, her fingers brushing the envelope still tucked in her purse. "You really didn't need to do this," she murmured. He smiled lightly. "Neither did you." For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, broken only by the soft music playing in the background. When the waiter came, Alexander ordered pasta and coffee, while Emma shyly chose something simple. She couldn't stop noticing the way he treated the waiter, with patience, with genuine gratitude. It surprised her. "You're not what I expected," she said quietly, once they were alone again. He looked at her curiously. "And what did you expect?" She smiled faintly. "Someone colder, sharper, maybe someone who wouldn't care about a mechanic's daughter." Alexander leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "I used to be that man," he admitted. "I worked so hard to build everything I have that I forgot how to look people in the eye and just listen. Then one night in a snowstorm, your father reminded me that kindness wasn't weakness. It was strength." Emma listened, her chest tightening. "He never mentioned helping anyone important," she said. "He just did what he thought was right." Alexander's gaze softened. He didn't see people as rich or poor, powerful or weak, just human. That's rare. The food arrived, steaming and fragrant, but Emma barely noticed. For years, she had carried the guilt of her father's unfinished debt like a weight on her shoulders, believing it defined her. Now, hearing Alexander speak about him with such respect, that burden began to lift. She looked down at her plate, blinking back tears. "I wish he could hear you say that," she whispered. "He'd be so proud." Alexander smiled gently. "Maybe he already knows." For a long while, they ate quietly, and when she finally looked up, she caught him watching her, not with judgment or pity, but with something deeper, something that made her pulse quicken. After dinner, they stepped outside into the cool night air. The streets glowed with soft yellow lights, and the world felt still. Alexander walked beside her without saying much, letting silence do the talking. At the corner, Emma turned to him. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have ignored me. You could have sent someone else." He paused, meeting her eyes. "Because you reminded me of what I used to believe in," he said simply. "Your courage, your loyalty, it's rare. Most people come to me for what I can give them. You came to give something back." She looked away, her cheeks warming. "I didn't expect anything in return." "That's exactly why you deserve something," he replied softly. They walked toward the bridge, the night breeze carrying the sound of distant traffic. Emma told him stories about her father, the late nights fixing cars, the laughter over burnt coffee, the way he'd always tell her, "Life will be kind if you stay kind first." Alexander listened closely, as if every word was something precious. "He was right," Alexander said after a pause. "Kindness finds its way back. It just takes time." She smiled faintly, looking at him under the city glow. "Do you really think so?" "I do," he said. "You're proof of it." They stopped halfway across the bridge, the skyline stretching endlessly before them. "I used to hate this city," Emma confessed quietly. "Too loud, too fast. But tonight it feels different." Alexander glanced at her, a soft grin tugging at his lips. "Maybe it's not the city that changed," he said. "Maybe it's you," she laughed lightly. "Or maybe it's the company." He chuckled at that, shaking his head. "I'll take that as a compliment." The tension between them softened into something warm, almost tender. For the first time, Emma saw not the CEO everyone feared, but a man who carried his own regrets and memories. As they stood in silence, he reached into his coat and handed her a small folded note. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I kept for years," he said quietly. She unfolded it and gasped. It was her father. His old business card, creased and fading. On the back, written in smudged ink, were the words, "Kindness doesn't come with a receipt." Emma's throat tightened as tears spilled down her cheeks. "You kept this all this time?" "Every day," he said softly. "It reminded me to be better, to remember where I came from." Emma looked at him through tears, the city lights shimmering behind them. "Thank you," she whispered. Alexander smiled faintly. "No," he said, "thank you for bringing him back to me." She couldn't speak, her heart too full. As the night deepened, he offered his hand. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's walk a little longer." She took it without hesitation. For once, she didn't feel like a girl repaying a debt. She felt like someone finally finding peace. By the time they parted that night, something had quietly shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but a deep, unmistakable connection built on the simplest truth her father had lived by. Kindness never dies. It just finds new hearts to live in. And as Emma walked away, smiling through her tears, Alexander watched her go with the quiet certainty that the daughter of the man who once saved him had, in her own way, done it again.